welcome back everyone. You might hear in the background a bit of rain. It's just raining we're having a few rainy days at the moment. So in case anyone's wondering what the noise is, if it picks up. Now I'd like to say a quick thanks to everyone who's been watching my videos and subscribing. Thank you all. Really appreciate it as well. If we can possibly try and get to 300 by the end of the year, that would be awesome. I will be having a video come out at the end of this year. I'm going to be trying to make some changes on the channel, plus some more channels, so to speak. A few other, and I'll be talking about those a few other ways, but I'm going to have to sort of try and communicate with everyone, just sort of, because in the future I'll be praying on mobile channels. And yeah, I'll be getting that into that in the video for the end of the year. Now, as is for as well. So with this, I made a post. I suppose I didn't technically label it efficient enough, I suppose, so to speak, because all I did was handmade or plasma rifle. And yeah, all I can say is I got some more or less colourful comments on that. So yeah, I will just say for anyone's wanting to know of any like this stuff, like what weapons, well, these are specifically for settlers. So if you want to know and you can't find online, and either can't test it or you don't want to test it, whatever, let me know and I'll do a testing like I have with this. My only reason why I did this test was my own curiosity, plus because I've got some other stuff coming in the future where I've got like I've got a few videos. One I've got like it's kind of around my own Minuteman rankings. I've made my own ranking, well, what I can figure out from lore, what their rankings are. But I'll be having what I have with my rankings of the Minutemen and the different sort of classes, specializations, yada yada, on that stuff. And that's why I wanted with this, which obviously plasma rifles are harder to find, but handmades technically are as well, but the ammo's harder to get as well, but you can get a whole heap of them at the end of Nuka World. Now, I will say it is a shock, because as most people, even on the post, said handmade, but again, I didn't put for this is for settlers, and again I did test these out on settlers, because I want to have, like, for my own Minutemen, I'd be having like one rank, like near the second highest rank, so to speak, or something, would have like the best weapon, and then like the lower rank under that would have next lower weapon. Now if I go and a bit further, comment if you want to what you think the winner of this is, either handmade or plasma, on terms of efficiency with settlers. And I will say, take out any knowledge you have of the problem solver, because that's why most people say the handmade is superior, because of the problem solver. We're not using the problem solver. I do believe settlers can use legendary effects, but I don't know what ones. But just take this knowledge, so to speak, with a grain of salt. I have done like about 100 rounds of testing on it. I will say, so I didn't, and it did take me a while. Plus, probably 100 plus rounds, I suppose. So I didn't do a couple rounds and that's that. For anyone who's wondering, I did thoroughly test this out, because as I was wondering, I will actually say the first like 30-ish rounds, I wasn't surprised in some ways, but I also was. So first of all, the video in the background probably won't add up exactly, because I was doing some rounds and then I forgot to write them. I wasn't writing them down. Then my stuff wasn't recording, so that is why on some of them. And yeah, both weapons are maxed out to their best efficiency. I didn't put a muzzle on the Handmade, just because I do have a perk that makes it from the Nuka World, makes guns do slightly more damage if they're suppressed. But I don't believe Settlers would would have that effect for themselves, so I don't think that would have mattered either way, but I didn't put a muzzle on them. They've pretty much got the exact same stats, like in terms of like their modifications of like their best stats sort of thing. It's just like the muzzle sort of thing was slash suppressor wasn't, I didn't put on. But yeah, so the first 25 to 30-ish rounds, well, what I've got written down is the first 25 rounds, the Handmade won 15 times and the Plasma won 10 times. Now, I was only going to do 5, and then as is, it was like Handmade, or no, it was Plasma, Handmade, yada yada, back and forth. And yeah, as is, the rounds kept on going. Like, they're not very far away, as you'll be able to see the Settlers, but they're close, but far enough away that they're sort of in a situation of they would really be if they were being attacked. And then by, well, you know, we'll see. I think it's about 30, and then by around 35, round 35, the Handmade was 18, and the Plasma was 17. Well, that was a brand new round altogether. So that was like, what's that? That's like 60 rounds. Not obviously all that kind of all together, because they were back to back, so to speak. Which was a really big surprise to me. Because as is, then like by that, you know, like the Handmade and Plasma are neck and neck. So then I started sort of all over again. And interesting enough, the Plasma wiped the floor with the Handmade. Now, if everyone starts to get angry or anything, saying, you know, Handmade's better, that's, again, if you're using the problem solver, that's a whole different box of frogs altogether. Okay, it's obviously with the Handmade, if you don't know, or if you do or don't know, I should say, the more you damage an enemy, well, the more consecutive hits you get, the more damage it does. So say you do 50 damage, the next shot could do 55, then 60, 65, so on and so forth. So to speak, you could get it up to maybe like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 damage per shot, and onwards and onwards. I will say the Handmade could have been so much more superior if it was like each consecutive shot would double the damage. Like, you imagine that for a second. 50, then 100, then 200, then 400, then 800, yada yada. You know, that would have made the Handmade a much more superior weapon by all means, especially if Settlers could use that stat, but it didn't. But anyway, so by round 10, the Plasma had 6 wins, the Handmaids had 4. By round 22, it was neck and neck. Plasma and Handmade both had 5. By round 30, now this is a massive shock and surprise, the Handmade had 1 and the Plasma had 9. The Plasma absolutely wiped the floor with the Handmade. Then round 40 was 3 for the Handmade and 7 for the Plasma. Then the same by round 50. And then by round 60, it was once again 1 to the Handmade, 1 to the Plasma. Now again, the footage in the background may not add up to exactly, like, obviously there won't be all of this, because I did, well, again, it was about an hour or two of testing, so to speak. So it is as bits and pieces of footage. Some of the stuff I didn't actually write down, some of the rounds, some I did. But yeah, by all means, the Plasma, for what I could personally see, outweighed the Handmade. Now, I will just say as well, I was actually I will say, I was hoping the Plasma would work, or I would win, because again, I knew Plasmas are kind of harder to get, so arming your Settlers, your best Settlers, or whoever you want to be, in a sense, your leading Settlers with Plasmas was the best option then for me, which I'm sort of lucky that they did, because yeah, it would have been a lot harder for me. But on the same hand, handmades are still reasonably hard to farm if you've used them already. Now, just note, even with my testing of this stuff, so like anyone could try this themselves and they could get completely different results. Because what I did notice from time to time is obviously sometimes the settlers would use their sort of arena animation, which would slightly it was weird because sometimes if say the plasma one was doing the animation, the handmade would win, but then other times when the plasma was still doing the animation, the plasma would win. So there's no you know, if obviously if they're doing their animation, oh, they're going to lose scenario, it's a 50-50 chance. Now, yes, obviously, well, they did have ballistic weave on. Now, yes, obviously, enemies will have a lot more armor, but all I can say is, well, it's like with super mutants, you take on like 20 super mutants with miniguns, they're going to shred through your armor. You take on like a settlement of 20 settlers with handmaids, they're still going to wipe the floor with most things. Same for plasma. So as is, it's, I mean, and again, it's whatever you want, obviously. Like if you're going for a specific style, like say, I don't know, say, I'm trying to think now. So like a secret agent type base at your settlement, you know, you can just arm all your settlers with, say, pistols. You know, even though they may not be as efficient, they're still going to work, and that's again obviously your own choice on the matter. Even though these do perform technically the best, yes, I didn't test them against other enemies, obviously because I don't have a settlement. Well, again, this is all done on Xbox One, by the way, so I don't really have the ability to spawn in NPC, like enemy NPCs, into my settlements for my settlers to deal with. And then as is, I will be having another series where I'll be remaking settlements, and probably different settlements might have that different theme or genre sort of thing. So, obviously I will, you know, different settlers will obviously have different weapons, which again, I will be, again, and when I do my video on like the different weapons, I'll be testing them beforehand, because like, say a farmer villager, say shotgun versus a, say, lever action rifle, because I think most real life farmers would use either a shotgun or lever action, probably less than a hunting rifle for an example. Maybe that could be a settler, so to speak, of role playing of, you know, you've got a settler who's like the hunter for the for your whatchamacallit, for your settlement. But then you could have like a sniper, obviously, with the Gauss rifle, and then obviously, you know, you're not going to exactly want your in a perspective, wouldn't want your settlers using like high powered weapons against, like, say, a rad stag for meat. Obviously you'd want them for a simple gun sort of thing. So yeah, as is, you don't have to use these if you don't want to. As is, obviously it's very daunting, I suppose it would be, the word would be, to get a lot of this stuff. Trying to think of the word now. Slight spoiler alert. That's a tongue twister. I can't say it now. Slight spoiler alert for Nuka World. You have been warned now. There is this spoiler for the end of Nuka World. Now, obviously, when you wipe the Nuka World Raiders out, you know, you can probably get over about 100 handmaids. Now, obviously, that might be like, you know, a lot of people might think, oh, that's a lot. Not in the grand scheme of things. So you think about that, most, depending on how you got your charisma, you could probably have about, well, you can technically, with base game, you can have, without any bobbleheads and maxing out your stats, you'll have about 20. Get a bobblehead plus maxed out stats, like max out your stats and a bobblehead, you get like 22. You can probably get about 40 normally, but if you use the Automatron glitch thing with settlers, which I commonly do to get a lot of settlers in a settlement, you could have a lot more. But just say you've got, say, all your settlements had, say, 40 people because of like clothing enhancements and that, so you could put extra settlers in a settlement. You think of that 40 settlers to a settlement, you're only going to get like 2.5 settlements full with the handmaids. But you can usually find roaming Nuke World raiders around the world. So, which then plasma rifles, obviously they're an they are easy to get in a sense once you're higher level, because you're going to get a lot of gunners that are going to have them. Now these are the stats that I came out with for my weapons, for when I maxed them out. Now the fire rate was the same. I didn't actually write that down because I think that's like 100 and something. So, but anyway. Now the handmaid's damage is 99, the range is 209, and the accuracy is 74. For the plasma, the damage is 82 ballistic damage, that's what the damage is, and then 82 energy. So that also does the 2 different types of damage. Range is 203, so about 6 points lower than the handmade, but then the accuracy is 145, which I'm actually very surprised with, and that's without a scope. Now I don't know, I sort of did look it up. Some people are saying settlers do and don't get extra accuracy from scopes. I don't know. If anyone has tested that themselves, let me know, so I can let everyone else know, or write that in a comment and I'll pin that or something, just so everyone knows obviously if it does or doesn't work. But yeah, so to modify the handmade as well, this is something you have to really think about as well when you're doing this. To modify the handmade, you need to have the commando perk. To max out everything, you need about rank 5. So obviously if you're a pistol and say a rifleman build, but you're not like really high up in your levels yet, you're not going to be able to do this. So yeah, if you're not planning on getting like pretty much all the perks, and like that's not going to be worth it for you, I'd probably say try and get a heap of plasmas then over handmaids, or try and get handmaids that are already modified pretty well with like auto receivers sort of thing, maybe, if you can, from Nuka World. And yeah, so I think the damage is normally halved. Well, the handmade, again, damage is 99. Just put that to 100 just to make it easier. Settlers without the perks would get about half that. So theoretically, they'd be getting, well, give or take about either 49 to 50 damage for the handmade. And then for the plasma, they're going to be getting about 41 ballistic and then 41 energy, which the energy still outweighs the handmade. And again, I know we got the problem solver, but you can't exactly, well, unless you know a way of farming up or duplicating, I suppose, or farming up as is the handmaids with the furious legionary effect, you're not going to really be able to do that for your settlers. So that's just something everyone should note. And that, so don't, again, if you can duplicate your problem solved, by all means duplicate that stuff, but give that to all settlers. But yeah, there's just with base ones, handmaids and plasma. If you can actually get wounding plasmas, give them to all your settlers. don't worry about anything else, just give those to your settlers. Which, and again, I'm surprised with the accuracy and range with the handmade and plasma, because like the range between the handmade and plasma isn't that different, but then yeah, like the accuracy is just like doubled. Actually, yeah, 74. That's about 148. So yeah, it's like pretty much like nearly half. Like the Handmade has half the accuracy of the plasma, which I'm surprised about. But when you think about plasma, that's like heat, light sort of stuff. So it's not an actual bullet. So it makes sense in a way with the accuracy. I believe I think that should be all. So yeah, the results of this test is obviously, yeah, the plasma. Well, for my personal testing, the plasma outweighs the Handmade when it comes to Settlers. Obviously, everyone has their own idea on what weapons are the best. Obviously, if you run around with a missile launcher, like a 2-shot missile launcher with a heap of missiles, that's obviously going to be your best thing. And I can't clarify this enough. This is for Settlers, because I know sooner or later someone's going to comment, like it kind of did on the post, saying, you know, the Handmade's still superior, sort of thing. So, this is for Settlers, not for the player. And again, like I kind of did on one post, someone saying that you can't trade for them, you have to find them yourself. And yeah, someone pretty much I thought that Fallout 4 was multiplayer. I thought, we're not playing Fallout 76 on this card, and that, but Yaz is just, yeah, that's a quick side note for people. Yeah, if you're gonna label posts for stuff of finding that stuff out, especially in a lot of the communities of games, yeah, just gotta label that stuff with everything, or yeah, you'll get some pretty nasty comments. Let's just say that, because yeah, I mean, to a degree, it's understandable, but on the other hand, there's no need to be mean to people just asking the question. And again, if anyone would like to see any other type of weapons which is best for Settlers, let me know. What's best for Settlers in their roles, or just for I might have different ones, but I'm probably going to be doing as well, like just in general what weapons are best. Obviously being heavy weapons, obviously, well, as it would be pistols, rifles, automatic rifles, heavy weapons, and so on and so forth. And then I might do different ones of the different categories of which one's best. But anyway, I think that should be all, and hope everyone has enjoyed, and see everyone next time.